But here's the other,
At least we're not going around the wrong way.
here's the other thing to notice with the state. When we asked, a light would be just as easy.
It hasn't
but
gone
they're
to the
expensive,
bishop yet.
expensive.
Yeah.
That's what.
Just saying.
Recommendations to the bishop.
How we doing?
Give me just a second here.
Oh, I better get my.
Oh, geez, no, it's mine.
I didn't think they were, well, they were talking about maintenance and stuff, but it was maintenance.
Can I opt out of that?
I didn't think so. Maybe you're right.
All right, we're good to go.
Right, I'm gonna call the meeting to order, do the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Public comment period. Is there anyone here for the public comment period? Looks like no. Need a motion for the February 17th board meeting agenda.
Madam Chair, I'll move the agenda as presented.
Here a second.
Second.
I should have asked you, Andrew, do you need anything?
No
added?
changes today, Madam.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. We have some employee years of service awards. 1 year, Health and Human Services, and Fishaber, Roxanne Gilbertson, eligibility worker and social worker. Sheriff's Office, Joe Mueller, Corrections Officer. 5 years, Sheriff's Office, Tony Brandt, Deputy. Administrator's Office, Andrew Letson, County Administrator. Highway Department, Tony Clovis, Mechanic. 1 year, Commissioner Cheryl Van Ort and Darren Samke. Yay! Sheriff's Office, Preston Rogers, Corrections Officer, and Deb Anderson, Corrections Officer. 20 years, Health and Human Services, Tanya Skog Hastings, Social Worker, Sheriff's Office, Jason Danielson, Sergeant, and 25 years, I saw this on Facebook, Susie Holtz, Dispatcher. So thank you,
fantastic.
everyone that's listening. We appreciate your service. All right, we need the consent agenda. You want to walk through that, Andrew?
Yes, it's a short one today. Approval of the February 3rd board meeting minutes. Approval of the Health and Human Services County and Hospital accounts payable. And approval of the purchase of the smooth drum roller.
Easy. Any questions for Andrew on any of that? If not, I'd look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move to accept the consent agenda. as
We
presented.
have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that, Madam
Second by
Chair.
Commissioner Schmidt. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And County Feedlot Officer.
Hello, I'm Ann Steinhaus, Meeker County Feedlot Officer, and I am here seeking approval for the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency County Feedlot Program Delegation Agreement Work Plan, which is for 2026-2027, which is basically the outline of the work that I plan to do towards the feedlot grant. I do other feedlot work that isn't covered in this grant, but this is the work that I work towards that'll then be graded on at my annual review.
I'm just gonna, by the way, I had another constituent call and they said they can hear us better, but they can't hear the people at the table. So if we remind you just to pull the microphone close, please.
Certainly, sorry.
All right, any questions?
You are looking for a motion?
Yes.
Do we want any more information? Is everyone okay? No questions?
We don't have a stress motion on this.
Okay.
Okay, then we'd look for a motion to approve the delegation agreement work plan for 2026.
Chair Oberg, I make a motion to approve the 2026 feedlot delegation agreement work plan.
Motion by Commissioner Johnson. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Darren
Second.
will second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ann.
Thanks, Ann.
Phil?
morning. Phil Schmalz, Public Works Director. I don't even know how many, but I have a few items for you this morning.
We'll take them one at a time.
First item for consideration is to consider approving the purchase of a snowplow truck with snow and ice equipment. So a little bit about our truck system. We have 16 tandems. Our unofficial target is 15-year age, so that typically puts us requesting a replacement about one per year. Pricing on trucks seems to have tamed a little compared to what we were forecasting. So if you look at the budget piece of what I submitted, we budgeted $375,000 for this truck in this year's budget, and our total cost is looking to be more in that $350,000 range plus tax and licensing, which will come on top of that when we make the purchase.
When you say 15 years, what is is there average mileage, or you just go by age, or?
We're typically going by age because the salt and road conditions eat our truck bodies up. So when we get to that 15-year age, regardless of miles, we have a lot of struggles with the body of the truck.
What is the average miles on them after 15 years?
I'd have to get you information on the real number. I'll tell you, our miles per truck when we're done with them is probably lower than some counties that are running 100% pavement, where we're trying to split things up with our blades and our trucks. So that's why it's typically conditions, not mileage, that'll eat our equipment up.
Madam Chair, if I may, but Phil, this truck you're replacing is '04, is that? '04-6, I'm
Yeah, this
assuming
is a
one of them, it's '04 or an '06 unit.
Yeah, this is a 2004 unit. 15 years is our target. We haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah, that's
So
22,
this-
so we're,
Truck is 22 years old.
So, and remind me, Mack and Western Star are both, you don't have another oddball out there and a different manufacturer, do you?
Not that we've been purchasing in the last maybe 10 years. We do have like an International and a Sterling still in the fleet. What we like is we don't want all of one manufacturer, but we do like maybe having it limited to two. That gives us options moving forward. Stocking parts is easier. And I'm happy to see Mack kind of get back into the game, because if you have looked back, we've bought a lot of Western Stars for years because Mack was not competitive price-wise. Mack is now back in line where they won this year's contract.
Madam Chair, I have a question. How do we determine how many trucks we need? You noted 16, I believe?
Yes.
Rather than 18 or 14, how do we note 16 is the optimal number?
We match that to the number of routes we try to run on our pavement system. So for the most part, our trucks are gonna stay on the paved system, the blades are gonna stay on the gravel system. It's not 100% true, because there's some efficiency considerations with mixing routes. But, so that's what we've put together right now with our 26 snow and ice routes, 16 of them trucks. And we've increased our trucks by one, I think, in the last few years, and we decreased by one blade. As township roads are slowly paving a little bit of gravel here and there, we have more of a need for truck service than blade service. But it's based on the number of snow and ice routes we're trying to cover.
And how do you determine how many routes?
Staff is a big part of that, and the number of routes we have will dictate our level of service we can provide, how long it takes us to cover our system. So a few years back, we did add staff, and with that, we added routes. So when you take our full-time staff plus part-time staff, those 26 routes are what we're trying to fill, and then we try to have the equipment available to cover that number of routes. So it's a combination of staff, equipment, and level of service we want to achieve.
I was just by Towmaster, I've been by Towmaster, but I happened to look, they got an awful lot of chassis sitting back in there. What would be the approximate delivery time?
I thought they said 6 months, but I don't think I brought that with me exactly. But
Okay.
they're not too far behind. There's always a backlog, but they're not too far behind right now. And I know the truck manufacturers are not nearly as behind as they were 2-3 years ago, where it used to be 18 months, 24 months. They'll start building this shortly after we have an approval to build a truck.
Any other questions?
Madam Chair, so how long does it take to go through the whole 26 routes?
It really depends on the storm. If we have 2 inches, let's say, ground speed is faster than if we get 6 or 8 inches. I'd say our unofficial target is in 6 to 8 hours. We hope to have covered everything once. The trouble is, a lot of times, the snow is
Just keeps
blowing, or
coming.
still falling, or there's ice we wanna come back and hit, or widening out shoulders, but 6 to 8 hours is pretty typical. So if we start at 4:30, do the math, hopefully by lunchtime, we've made our first pass.
Well, and it varies too, with different regions of the county have different challenges, so wind blowing in the southwest corner of the county is a lot different than the wind blowing in the northeast corner of the county, and, you know, so you might be able to pull equipment to a certain area or something too to help.
We shuffle things around on an individual storm basis. I don't know how long ago it was, maybe a couple of weeks. We had snow where I think the Kingston area had 3 or 4 inches, and down by Cosmos, they had less than an inch. So in that situation, we do try and allocate more resources to where there's heavier snow. Because we won't run gravel roads when we have less than an inch of snow.
Okay, I'm gonna ask the difficult question.
Yeah.
If we decreased our snowplow by 1 and our employees by 1, how much time would that add to that 6 to 8 hour time frame? And do we have any idea how much money that would save our taxpayers?
Big question. So I would look at that as if we reduced one plow truck, we're talking about paved routes, so 1/16 roughly, being we're running 16 paved routes. So that's what I would expect. It's not a huge difference, but it is a lower level of service than what we provide now. Cost savings, you could take that one truck, and if we want to assume a 15-year life, spread that cost out over 15 years for an annual savings. And an employee, we're talking probably in the neighborhood of $70,000 or $80,000 a year with wage plus benefits.
Are you fully staffed now?
We are not fully staffed.
The reason, I had a couple phone calls from, which, you know, we raised property tax, which we had to do, and then they see us buying new trucks, so I think that there has to be, we have to be, give some better explanations maybe of why we're doing this, and maybe look into it next time we do a budget. I mean, we're going through some troubling times, and it's not just your department, there's a lot. We didn't have as many events the last 3 years, do you say, or?
Not as much snowfall, and right now, if we got wind, it doesn't matter because there's not snow on the ground.
Right.
That's the sneaky part, is the wind causes ice, and we have to run regardless of snowfall or not. I'd say wind is our biggest enemy for trying to maintain our paved routes, but our gravel routes do drift over as well. With
Right.
blowing snow. But if we don't get snow, that's not as big of a concern.
Phil, if we reduced an employee, how would that affect your summer work?
That will harm our crew effort. So part of the ad we did a few years back was to get us a full crew without shutting blades down and pulling them off of the gravel roads in the summer. So that was how we came up with the number and the staffing level that we're targeting right now, to be able to have a full crew without taking effort away from elsewhere.
It's been a while since you've had a full, well, did we have a full crew for about,
I think last
Couple
summer,
months or
we've
something.
had at least one vacancy. Prior to that, I believe we were fully staffed.
Cheryl, did you have something else?
No, I just did the math. I mean, if one of the units is 160,000, that's $10,000 a year for the truck, correct?
Plus the snow and ice equipment, so that 160,000 only buys you the truck.
Okay.
And you go to Towmaster and it's additional 190,000. So
Okay,
you would wanna spread
300.
about $350,000
300 and some.
across that 15
so
years.
closer to 20,000 a year for the equipment, the truck and the equipment. And then 80 for an employee is $100,000 a year. Just, you know, looking for the number. We're about $100,000 a year per unit to make sure that we get the roads done in 6 to 8 hours. Okay,
Roughly. Yep.
roughly, okay.
Anything else? If not, I would look for a motion.
Chair Oberg, move to approve the purchase of a new 2027 Mack Granite 64 FR from Nuss Equipment of St. Cloud, Minnesota, for a not-to-exceed price of $165,000, and snow and ice body equipment from Towmaster of Litchfield, Minnesota, for a not-to-exceed price of $195 before taxes and licensing.
We have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that, Madam Chair.
Any other discussion?
Just 195,000. You said 195.
I know, I was cheating out as I read it.
Towmaster price 195,000.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Second item for consideration is to consider awarding our 2026 chip seal contract for CASA 3 and CASA 12. So as I've discussed in the past, we used to use chip seals differently than we do now. We used to try and cover up some of our crack sealing, patching operations, and hit our new pavements to extend the life of those pavements by sealing the oil in that pavement. Because of the cost of chip seal, it's been rising and rising. It's come back a little bit. This year, again, we're still only looking to cover our new pavements to extend the life, seal in the oil. We're not covering any crack sealing or patching operations. So that's why we only have 2 county roads on this year's program. It's CASA 3 and CASA 12. There was some other township work bid with this, and that's awarded separately by those townships. So this number is just for the state aid piece on CASA 3 and CASA 12.
Did these prices come in higher than anticipated? Because usually your engineer's estimate is pretty darn close.
The actual price is similar to last year. We were anticipating a little bit of a pullback, and it
Okay.
came in about on what we paid last year.
Okay.
So that's when you look at the estimate. The budget was probably put together earlier. That's why we budgeted higher, ratcheted down with our estimate, and then the actual cost came in between.
Thank you.
Chair, if I may, Phil, so we're only doing new pavements here, but, you would like, what you're telling us was you would like to do additional seals?
I'd like to, I just don't think you get enough bang for your buck. The value of that chip seal. Years ago, we used to pay $17,000 a mile. I don't even know what our per mile cost is here off the top of my head, but it's way more than that. So that's where I just don't think.
15 and a half.
If you gave me $1,000, I don't know if I'd put another $1,000 on chip sealing. I'd put that funding, I'd put that money elsewhere.
Okay,
I don't
I
think-
just, you made that point, and I wanted to verify.
Yeah,
what-
we've just backed off on our program as a whole for chip sealing.
It
That's what I'm
became,
saying.
it priced itself out of viability. Understood. Thanks.
Anybody else? Then I'll look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move to award the 2026 chip seal contract to Pearson Brothers of Hanover, Minnesota, for an estimated total cost of $470,743.47.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
Next item for consideration is to set a parking lot pavement rehab letting date for the Justice Center parking lot. So this is a project I think you're all aware of. It's been coming to follow the building project itself. Public Works, our highway group, has been putting together a plan set. We're nearly done, just working on some erosion control measure stuff that the city wanted us to add. But part of the process to advertise a project is to get letting approval from the county board.
Madam Chair, I'll move to authorize Public Works to set a letting date for paving of the Justice Center parking lot.
We have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I will second that.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. Next item for consideration is to approve a partnership contract with MnDOT and SEH, which is Short Elliott Hendrickson Incorporated, a consultant engineer, for preliminary geometric layout work for the roundabout at CASA 34 and US Highway 12. So this is not what I'd call plan preparation. This is hiring a consultant to determine exactly what size, what shape, how the legs are gonna work on this roundabout. So there's some design work, there's gonna be some public involvement pieces to this. This is primarily being led by MnDOT now at this point. To recap where we're at, Meeker County went out and got some external funding through the Transportation Economic Development Program. And then MnDOT stepped up and said, hey, why don't you let us lead this? We've done this before, I have not. So I feel comfortable having them lead it, and this is where we start with a geometric layout concept work with a consultant. And the estimated cost, I guess to get into that a little bit, we're planning to split the cost on engineering, not construction, by 1/3, 2/3 to represent the primary legs of the intersection, with 2 legs being US Highway 12 and 1 leg being CASA 34. That's where we come up with the not to exceed number of $58,314.87 on the geometric layout work for the county.
And they're in the budget for 26, I believe I read, so.
Yes. This fits within the budget for 26. I'll tell you, when we get to final design and some of those other consultant costs that will come, I did not budget for that entire amount. So this, I would say, is in the budget, but we will get to a point in engineering where it's not in the 26 budget. It may be in the 27 budget, depending what kind of timeline we're working with here. I think this runs into late summer before they get done with the preliminary layout work.
Okay. Questions? If not, I'd look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the professional services contract for preliminary geometric layout work for a roundabout at the intersection of CASA 34 and US Highway 12 with MnDOT and consultant SEH Inc.
We have a motion by Commissioner Van Ork. Do I hear a second?
Second, Madam Chair.
Second by Commissioner Schmidt. Any more discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, I guess a brief recap on the local option sales tax that we discussed 2 weeks ago. We had a public hearing 2 weeks ago, didn't have public feedback in the room, so we opted to table, or the board opted to table the discussion for today. I didn't plan to go through the, presentation that we had done, but I didn't get any feedback in our office in the last 2 weeks. I don't know if board members had heard from the public or if there was additional comment.
I had a couple phone calls. You know, it's the usual, people are just tired of taxes. And I explained to them that we have things we have to fix that we are not receiving funding for, which is probably not our fault, but. So I had a couple calls, that was it. I had none in favor, but that's not so unusual, you know, so.
Yeah, and no one likes new taxes, wants new taxes. My strategy here, the reason I brought it forward, it's as our system continues to not keep up, funding versus cost, I don't want those costs to fall on the levy. That's my primary objective.
I think that people realize that, it's just like I said, it's a it's a three-letter word tax, it's just not, it's not fun. One of the questions was, will this sunset? And I said, yes, when the project is done, right? That
It will.
We're targeting, but to be honest, we'll probably be doing this for a lot of years.
If the funding system doesn't change at the state and the federal level, there's gonna be a new list of projects by the time we get through these ones. So yes, it sunsets and it can sunset at any point with board action too, but I don't think it's realistic to expect it to without a significant change in the way transportation's funded.
Madam Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just, and I think that's the challenging part is the conversation is it's a new tax. But the challenging part is, and Phil touched on it, that this is a transportation funding tool that the state gave us 13 years ago. If you look at a map, Meeker is one of the very last ones left, or few left, that does not use, and I think we have a map coming up here, but we haven't utilized it, so when we send our legislators down to St. Paul and ask them to look for transportation dollars for us specifically, the first thing the other team does, and there is two teams in
I know.
St. Paul, is point to this very map and say, why aren't you utilizing the tools that we gave you, the legislature authorized you 13 years ago to use? I don't like it, but I like a wheelage tax a whole lot less.
Me too.
And, it's unfortunate, but it is the tools that we have, one of the few tools we have left in our toolbox, and the dollars that we are getting annually are covering less and less miles of road every year. So it's not where we wanna be, but it's where we are.
And I think that everyone at this table realizes that, we're gonna have to continue to look at everything and do some cutting where we don't want to. I mean, because I don't know how soon this is gonna change, obviously. They're just hanging more of it back on the counties. That's their out, they keep getting reelected, and then people call up and are upset with us. So you might be barking up the wrong tree, so to speak.
We don't have a lot of choices. We can do this, we can do this local option sales tax, a wheelage tax, which no one likes. We can not repair our bridges and just leave them.
Yeah.
Or we can raise people's property taxes, and none of those are good choices. I think this is the best option that we have.
And keep letting your voice being heard at state and federal level also.
Absolutely.
Because Steve does that for us all the time, and we need more citizens to keep doing that also. So,
Well, the comment that I heard more than once about 4 or 5 times was, I'm tired of paying for Wright County's roads, I'm tired of paying for McLeod County's roads, I'm tired of paying for Candido High. Can't drive through them by a single thing without helping their roads, so.
Well,
About
and if you look at
time.
that map, you gotta drive a long way to find a county that you're not gonna help.
That doesn't make me like it any better,
No.
but we are where we are, so.
Exactly.
Well, Madam Chair,
Darren?
just for whatever it's worth, I have brought it up with a number of constituents, and, you know, when you explain it, everybody's pretty cool with it. They just kind of go, yeah, that makes sense. And then when you add that, you know, at least we can have some of the people who are coming into Meeker County paying, contributing to it as where they
We can
never had
punish
to
them.
before. It's,
We can
yeah,
punish
people,
them.
people just pretty much get it, and they appreciate that, you know, we're finding some other means of funding other than the property tax levy.
Community public comments, or is that ship sailed, sorry.
I don't believe so. Anything else? If not, I'd look for a motion, and this is a resolution, so we'll be doing a roll call.
Madam Chair, I move to approve a resolution approving the transportation sales and use tax.
So here, second.
I will second that.
Any other discussion? Corey, do you want to do the roll call, please?
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Ord,
Yes.
Commissioner Samke,
Yes.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Yes.
Commissioner Oberg.
Yes.
Thank you. That's all I had today.
That was a lot.
Sure. That's enough.
Slacking off, Phil.
Thanks, Phil.
Greg Schultz, Land Use Records Director.
Morning, Greg Schultz, Land Use Director. This morning I've got 4 items for consideration. First item I got is a 1 megawatt solar project. This is south of Dassel. The map up there, it's an 8-acre parcel, or 8-acre, part of a 60-acre parcel. City of Dassel signed a waiver January 20th to 26th to allow us within 1,000 feet of its city limits. And neighbor Ray Wagner, who is to the east of this property directly to the farmhouse, he signed a waiver on December 12th, allowing the project to be within 1,320 feet of his dwelling. If you look at this property here, there are 2 existing solar projects on there. Actually, there are 3. The one up in the northeast corner is actually started as a fence around. They've done some site work and grading on that. First one was permitted in 2017, second one in 2019, and the last one was in 2022. So this is gonna fit where that, where it says site there on that site map. It's actually where the existing farm site is on that property in Woods. If you remember back in '24, across the road on 725th Street to the west of this site was permitted as well. They started work on that project and they've discovered that with last year's rain that there's tiling in there that has been destroyed and it doesn't drain well. So that's why they're gonna switch across the road with this project. Essentially the same size, still 1 megawatt, still 2,574. Single access trackers for solar panels. They're using the same interconnection agreement as it was for the one across the road on the west side. And that was approved, initially it was approved in '24, it was actually finally approved in 2025 with its interconnection agreement. They're planning on this site to be operational for about 25 years. And as I mentioned, this was slated to be on the west side of 725th. Now it's going to be on the east side of 725th where the existing farm site is located. City of Dassel contacted me a couple weeks ago and indicated there's a ditch on the very south side of this property. When that, where it says site, there's a ditch that runs through and they want to make sure that that is not compromised during this project. So that was put in the conditions for the City of Dassel's sake because some of the drainage does run along the south side of the property out of that wetland areas to the northwest of this property, down through there to the south and towards the east. So that was put in the conditions for that. Any questions on this project?
Questions?
Is that basically gonna be leveling that homestead site then?
Well, they'll be taking all the buildings and all the trees out, yes. They will not be doing that much on the contour. They're gonna scalp about the top foot of it, sounds like, to put the pilings in that, but they're not gonna, you know, make it perpendicular. They want the contour.
Right.
For the elevation for the solar panels, so. But all the trees and all the buildings will be removed. That's the plan.
Any other questions?
It's not your house, is it there?
You worried about it?
In case you didn't know.
If not, I'd look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the conditional use permit number 16727 for a 1 megawatt solar garden located in the northwest quarter of the southeast quarter of the section 24.
34.
Sorry, section 34, township 119, range 29, Dassel Township, with the conditions.
We have a motion by Commissioner Van Ort. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Samke. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
All right. Second item I have is for the final plat of Laughlin Acres. Remember, this went through the board back in September to get rezoned and replatted. This is actually agricultural land along the Little Swan Lake property, so it was rezoned. And preliminary plat went through in September of 25. This is a one-lot plat. It's plenty large, it's 133,000 square feet. Minimum size for a lot this size of our ordinance is 50,000 square feet. Title policy was reviewed by Emily Wood for the county and found that title work is satisfactory. There's the ability to have two separate septic systems on the property, as what our ordinance requires as well. So, and they're gonna use the existing access point off of the county state aid road there as well. Any questions on?
Questions? If not, I would look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the final plat application for the one-lot plat of Laughlin Acres located in part of Section 11, Township 119, Range 29 in Dassel Township.
We have a motion by Commissioner Samke. Do I hear a second?
I will second.
Second by Commissioner Johnson. Any other discussion? Not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That green grass looked beautiful.
Yeah, it does.
All right, next one I have is a joint powers agreement with the city of Painesville for building inspection services. Those of you who are familiar, since July, county building inspector has been inspecting for the city of Litchfield since Jim Tews had gotten sick and had passed away in September. So since then, we have not had a backup for our inspection service in the county. For that, Jim was our backup. Jim was also the backup for the city of Painesville as well. So with this, we are gonna have that joint backup. And this is only gonna be used for, you know, long-term, you know, maybe a week of vacation, a couple weeks of vacation, long-term or illness or something like that. This is not gonna be used for being gone on a Friday or a Monday or anything like that. So we can plan with the city, or Painesville can plan with us ahead of time, and we'll line up inspections on that. For that, they're not gonna be doing the building plans, they're not, plan review, they're not gonna do zoning reviews, they're not gonna be doing building code enforcements. It's just gonna be for the initial inspection services that keep projects rolling. They've signed this agreement on January 26th. They've agreed to a cost of $75 per inspection and plus mileage as well. So we'll do the same thing, they'll charge them the same. So,
Chair Olberg, this sounds like a win-win for both sides.
yeah, it's not easy to find inspectors.
Right.
So,
Any other discussion? If not, I would look for a motion.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
move to approve a joint powers agreement for building code inspection services with the city of Painesville.
We have a motion by Commissioner Schmidt. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Samke. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Zoning ordinance amendments.
zoning ordinance amendments. A few of them here, as you can tell. So back in December, or actually in November, well, I contacted told the planning commission to kind of start thinking about what they want to change. We haven't done this for a while, other than the solar and wind amendments on a major scale. We haven't looked at all of our ordinances for a couple of years, so this is a good time to do that. So November, we talked about it a bit. December, we talked about it a lot. January, we talked to kind of finalize, and then this past February 10th, we had a public hearing on what was proposed on the amendments. So this is what we had come up with. The first part of the amendments, you see there's changing time limits for permit expirations for building, conditional use, variance, and interim use permits. A lot of our permits would normally expire at 12 months. We pushed it out another 6 months. We have been running into some issues, especially on the building side of the world, of things not getting even started within 12 months. So the commission thought of extending another 6 months to get some of this in order for contractors, materials, things like that, since it's not as quick to get things started as it used to be years ago. That was kind of the reasoning on that one.
Chair Oberg, if I can interrupt Greg.
Yes.
I don't think any of these are time sensitive by any stretch, are they? That we have to act on them today?
No, we do not.
I'm not convinced that the notice that was put in the local newspaper was an adequate notice. I think not on the, no error by our planning and zoning, but if you looked at the Litchfield Rail on both February 5th and January 29th, it's very difficult to even tell what's written in there, let alone what it's about. Then I have to ask this. I was on the phone yesterday with Yellow Medicine County about another matter and got to talking with their commissioner there. And we talked a little bit about planning and zoning, and he said, how come the planning and zoning committee has to have the public meeting? He said, you're the decision makers. That public meeting should be held by you as the board. You're the ones that are gonna make the final decision. I hadn't even thought of that. But that does make sense. If we're making a final decision on a change, shouldn't that public meeting be with us? Not them. Otherwise, we're getting it filtered. We're not hearing directly from the public. And so that was a point that really, I just hung on that one and thought, oh, that one kind of makes a little bit of sense. This is a lot of information that I would like to have seen at a work session, so we could have really hashed it out and gone through it. The solar and wind changes that are in there, although they're minor, 2 years ago, we went through quite the sessions on solar and wind, so I had a little bit of an objection with that. Another thing, that this is one of the few committees we have where we don't have a commissioner as a liaison to this board to keep us up to date and informed, but that's another matter for another day. But at this point, I'd like to make a motion to table these to a future date so that we have an opportunity to have them at a work session and have them explained in great detail. This is a number of changes here to the ordinances. And correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, normally we don't have wholesale changes like this. It's usually words like may are changed to cannot, or should is changed to a more definitive type language, so.
Mays or shalls.
And we don't want to get into where we're looking at things that belong in the comprehensive use, land use plan in lieu of here. So with that, I'm gonna make the motion to table this ordinance package at this time.
We have a motion on the table, to table the amendments to the zoning ordinance. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that. I'll second that for further discussion.
We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion?
Yeah, if I may, Madam Chair, thank you. I think a couple of things Paul brought up, I would like to go through it more in depth. In a work session is probably the best place to do that. And the other thing, and I had thought about that too, was I know there's counties, and that's something that we should look at too, that do have a commissioner sit on there that are a non-voting member on the planning and zoning, but they manage the meeting, if you will. So I don't know if we can kind of sort that out, what other counties do differently than us, that, and how that setup is. I think that would be good information to have too, so.
Were any of the commissioners at the public hearing?
I'm sorry, what?
Were any of the commissioners at the public hearing?
I was not.
Were you aware of the public hearing?
I was unaware of the.
I
public
feel like a few years ago when we did this, and this isn't, that somehow we had a special email about it. Cause I recall one year it was like at 4 o'clock in the afternoon for some reason and people couldn't get there. I don't know if that was before you guys, so I have no issue with tabling it and then having it at a work session. I think that's just fine.
And I do agree, there's a bulk of information here
Yeah.
that we should.
In case we have questions or whatever, so. Any other discussion?
Would there be someone from planning and zoning at that work session to kind of,
Well-
Bryce was Greg, but.
Normally, it would just be Greg. We don't normally have other people from the,
If I could have the chair.
yeah, we can. Is that Greg, Jans?
That's Greg Jans.
He could come. Whatever, so,
Herein lies what I said, we don't have a liaison. If there was a commissioner on our planning and zoning, that would be the person that would be supplemental to Greg then in being able to discuss this. We would also get updates in our committee reports at the end of committee meetings.
I think that's,
That may be a broader conversation.
that's what I was
because there's
just gonna
other
say.
committees
That's a
as well.
broader discussion, I
There,
think.
there's the Board of Appeals, there's the Park Board, there are other committees that don't have commission representatives. I think that's a broader conversation of whether you want to have
Okay.
commissioners serve on there. The comment about holding the public hearing at the planning, it's in our ordinance that the planning commission holds that public hearing. It is typical, from what I've seen in my career, that the planning commission holds those public hearings. But we can certainly have a work session to discuss these specific amendments. And as a reminder, these do come out of the initial conversation that you all had. And
Right.
I believe it was in November at the work session. That was what was the impetus for the planning commission to then have these conversations and come back to you with their recommendations. These are just their recommendations.
It would have been nice to be made aware of the public hearing like we have been in the past. I don't get the Litchfield Rail, and when I do, it's so small I can't read it.
Sure.
So, no, the print is too small in what we're putting out. It's the same issue we
is.
had. We have to get that fixed. We pay money, and I'm assuming it's being addressed,
Yeah, it has been, yes.
so.
I guess for me, it's like, again, the planning and zoning seems to me to be a lot closer to the issues than we are. I mean, we're
Sure.
like a step off of it. And so,
But in the end, we make the final
Yes,
decision.
for sure.
So it's all right for us, I think, to have a work session and go over these things.
Sure.
Unless there's a time element here, there isn't, so.
And I would, I'd like to just find out, because other counties do have a commissioner on there, and just get that, find out what that, how that is set up.
Can you
Yeah,
do that?
Greg, I think that you can
Do
reach
some-
out to the folks in your region. We can find out how
It's Friday, actually.
how our neighbors handle it, so.
Yeah, appreciate that.
And I just want to say that state statute authorizes the ordinance to allow the county board to delegate that authority to the planning commission. So everything that we've been doing is legal and
I don't think
allowable.
I don't think
inferring
anybody
that
thinks
anything-
it's not
No.
legal. But I think we need some more information. I was just surprised when it.
And I would
missed
agree,
something here.
this is a lot of information, and that I would like to go through it, with you, so that we understand what we're approving is, and it's in the
Yep.
best interest of everyone in Meeker County. Yep.
Any other discussion? If not, there's a motion to table. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So we will table it and you'll schedule a work session, Andrew? Thank you.
I will be gone in March work session.
You're always gone at the input, no.
We can certainly schedule a special work session
Oh,
to
yeah,
find a date for
yeah,
this,
yeah.
to deal with this specific issue. So, Commissioner Schmidt, we can connect on your schedule and find a date that works, and then we'll.
Yeah, the regular one I will.
Thanks,
Is that
Greg.
it, Greg? Thank you. Mikel Johnson, Human Resources Director. There you are, by yourself.
I ask a question before we get into the good?
Yes,
stuff?
you can.
Raquel?
Yes, sir.
No, it's with HR. Your health savings account,
Yes.
I've been told that, through my financial advisor, we were talking about that, and that you can actually have that money, it can be invested in, but you have to do it through the agency
I
you're
don't
working.
have one.
Correct, so you
Is
can
theirs-
log into WEX, and then there's, some
I know you
areas
do.
in there where you
We
can look
don't.
at what your
Oh.
investments are.
Okay,
You can change
and you
them.
can,
Yep,
all
And
right,
we can get together and I can show you how
Okay.
to do
You
it.
have
All
one
right.
through here, right?
I appreciate that, thanks.
Well, no, you don't. All right.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Raquel Dennison, Resources Director. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. So just an overview of our department. So our why. So one of the questions that we're often asked in interviews by candidates is, what do you like most about working for Meeker County? And my response is always, I enjoy supporting the people that go out and support the community. So while I'm not out in the community directly, I'm making sure that I'm taking care of our folks so that they don't have to worry about things like their benefits or things like that, so that they can go out and do their jobs and not have to worry about that. So our why is that we align with what the county's goal is to do. I'm helping when employees have major life events, so I can be in my office on any given day going down my to-do list and someone can say, hey, do you have a minute? And then they'll come in and they'll disclose something like, I have major cancer going on. And so then it's like, okay, let's figure out how I can support you, what resources that we have, what can we look at, what can we get in place for you. So I'm here to help support people through those times. I'm here to help people advance their career goals. So if we have things like promotions and people are wondering, what do I need to get to that position? That's kind of ultimately what I'd like to do. Help people stay within the county and grow within the county. That's what I help with as well. We help with performance management, so it's also what can supervisors and employees do to make sure that we're being really clear with what our expectations are, helping people grow, also telling people when they're doing an excellent job and helping support and appreciate them for what they do as well. Providing resources, so again, that's through a lot of different things, whether that's through benefits, whether that's through safety, whether that's through making sure that we're following different laws like the FMLA and things like that. So making sure that we're supporting people that way. And then ensuring compliance, so obviously those are things like our policies and the things that we have to do for reporting, whether that's the pay equity like we just got done approving, or OSHA logs or things like that. So making sure that we're doing all of those things to stay in compliance. These are some of our department functions, so that's a long list that seems to keep getting longer, but it keeps things interesting, I guess. Job security, as they say. So obviously we do everything from recruiting to benefits, employee engagement, compensation and classification, policy, managing personnel files, performance management. We also support soil and water, so we have their benefits as well. EDA, oftentimes I am called by people from different organizations that are local, like the CHS or Supporting Hands, when they have HR questions that they're wondering and would like some advice on. We also support people that are out on para-duty disability. So even when people aren't employees or actively working, we also are supporting those folks. So also retired people that are calling and having questions, things like that. Obviously, we have to have compliance with federal and state law. We do employee training, whether that's safety training or any of the compliance training that we do. And we also do workers' compensation. We negotiate union contracts, as you know, also interpret it. So if there's something that comes up that we're like, well, let's look at the contract language, and then also do we need to look at policy language. There's the end of employment process, so that is offboarding. What does that look like with people's benefits? How does that happen? Making sure that we're communicating with them what happens there. Keeping up to date on legislative changes. Obviously, we've had a lot these last couple years, so that's been fun. And then guidance and support for all of the different county departments. And with that comes the understanding that they all work a little differently, and so having to know what works best for each department and coming together with the different supervisors and department heads. So this is kind of a smattering of all the laws. Obviously, I won't read through all of those, but there just is a lot, and it just grows more and more every day. And we just do our best to make sure that we're staying educated on these things. I'm very involved in our state macrame organization, so we have conferences and things like that where we share a lot of information and bounce ideas off of each other. This is a listing of all the different benefits that we have. So we have 2 different health insurances. We have PEEP, which is primarily law enforcement. And then we have Prime Health, which covers the rest of the county. We have vision, dental, long and short-term disability, accident, critical illness, and hospital care. Life insurance, we have both through the Hartford and NSPERS. We have para for our pension, HSAs and VIVAs, FSAs, both medical and dependent, deferred compensation. We have EAP program, and we also have the new Minnesota Paid Leave, which is a state program, but then we help administer it on our side when we receive claims. This is a makeup of our county workforce, and I think that it's important to keep an eye on these age ranges because we have to be thinking about where is the majority of our staff. What does that look like when people start to retire? Are we going to see a large impact with retirements? So I think it's just a good idea to keep an eye on this. Obviously, you can see right now that our 56 to 61 age group is our highest, and then it drops off from there. It is nice that we do kind of have a mix before that, so that we're not totally just leaning into one area, but we do have that 56 to 61 area that will impact us once they start to get to that retirement age. We have 214 full-time employees, we have 29 part-time, and of the 214 full-time, 152 of those are union, so we have quite a large population that are union. Recruiting and retention, so we have the same turnover rate that we had last year, so 11%. The average actually changed a little bit from the last time I did this presentation. It has actually dropped a little bit, so we are still in a good percentage considering that the average for the US is 13 to 18.3%. I believe last time that I was here, it was more around that 20%. It was higher the last time, so it has dropped a little bit. I think the interesting thing about this chart, so the blue is the number of hires, the orange is resignations, and the gray is retirements. As you can see, the retirements has actually stayed fairly steady. And I think it's interesting that back in 2020, what was happening during that time, that was COVID. So you can see the impact that we had during that time where we were really struggling to hire, and especially in like law enforcement, corrections officers, things like that. So you can see how that chart has now started to get to the point where we have increased the hires because we have now been able to fill those roles again. And we'll see what happens from here, where 2025, the resignations and the number of hires is really close together. So this is just an overview of our ancillary benefit enrollment. As you see, our highest ones are life and dental. I would imagine that if I have this same graph next year, that the short-term will probably drop significantly because of Minnesota paid leave. So we'll see. I know there was still a number of people that enrolled in short-term this year just because they're like, this whole thing is new, I'm a little nervous to not. So there were some people that still kept short-term this year, but we'll see what that looks like in the future once Minnesota paid leave gets going. In speaking with our brokers, our numbers are looking really great. Our accident, illness, and hospital, those are pretty typical. There isn't usually as much enrollment in those plans, so those are pretty typical enrollment numbers. But they sit down with me, they give me percentages and tell me what we look like compared to other counties that they work with, and they say that we're sitting really in a good spot, so. These are our health insurance enrollments for single plans. So just so you know, the GEM names are all Prime Health, and then the two on the right are our PEEP plan, so those are the two different health insurance companies. I think the positive thing that you see here are that our lowest HSA plans on the single are our highest enrollments, and that's really what you are looking for, because that means that most of the time people that are enrolling in those plans are healthy, because if they need to use those plans, they pay more out of pocket, but they're able to save up more in health savings accounts, and that's really ideally where we want people to be, is to be in those plans. So it's a nice capture of our enrollment. This next one is our family plan. So again, same thing. We're seeing that we are having more enrollments in our HSA plans than our non. So the two on the left are Prime, and then the two on the right are PEEP. And again, that comes down to also educating employees about what their best options are, and the fact that they can save into an HSA is a really great deal. So it's partly doing that education as well. One thing that we'll be looking at going into the future is how many people are taking leaves, what is their reasons for taking leaves, and what does that look like with the impact of Minnesota paid leave. So what I did was I looked through the last several years to see what reasons people are taking leave. So the blue is they are taking for their own condition, orange is for the care of others, and then gray is maternity or paternity leave. So I don't really see. Obviously, from 2020, it was pretty high for people taking for themselves, and now back in 2025, we're back to that being the high piece again. We also had a pretty high spike for maternity in 2022. So it'll be interesting to see what this graph looks like after we've been in Minnesota paid leave for a bit, and just see what that looks like, so. So in review of this last year, we had legislative changes to ESST. We had to get ready for Minnesota paid leave, which was a really big undertaking. And there was also new break laws as far as when people can take breaks after how long they've been working. That actually got implemented January 1st of this year. So we created the Minnesota paid leave policy language and processes. Obviously, we're still learning as that goes. We've had one person for sure submit a claim so far. We have another one that's in the works. And so just learning what that process looks like. So I created an entire form that I sit down with the employee that we go over to talk about things like, how do you want to handle your benefit premiums while you're out? How do you want to handle that first 7 days? Do you want to use accrued time during that time? Don't you want to use accrued time? And then when you're out, do you want to use accrued time? Because all of these things are things we have to find out and ask. So also just reiterating to them what happens with their para, and talking about FMLA as well, because they have different timelines. So figuring out which leaves work for them. So we've been doing that. We researched and implemented moving to MetLife for Minnesota paid leave, dental, and short-term, and then we moved to the Hartford for life insurance. That was after reviewing proposals and meeting with the health insurance committees and getting feedback from people there. We've had several challenging situations with employees over the last year, so I'm helping with that. We completed our pay equity reporting. We did our second year of reviewing a third of the job descriptions through that ongoing maintenance through PEA, and assisted filling department head vacancies. Looking forward to 2026, it's also just continuing to get to know that Minnesota paid leave process, see what that's like. And employees have been really great in understanding about that already. So it's just working together to try and figure out that process. We have another third of the job descriptions that will be reviewed through the ongoing maintenance. We have union negotiations this year. Continuing on working on doing some more leadership training with supervisors as well, both new supervisors and people that have already been here. We are looking at evaluating strategies for health insurance costs because health insurance just continues to rise, and so trying to figure out a good balance between what employees pay and what the county pays. And then continuing to support departments through ongoing employee issues. We have a few going on, unfortunately, but also I think it's good to remember that we have some really amazing people that are working here, that are working really hard and doing really amazing things in the communities. So that is what I have for you.
Questions?
Is the highway department still the hardest jobs to fill?
The heavy equipment operator has been a struggle, yes.
And for a long time.
Yes.
Anybody else?
As long as I've been here. I would say as long as I've been here,
It's always been,
it's
yeah.
always.
Well, yeah, as people started retiring, they used to come back a little bit to help out, and not so much anymore, I don't think, so. The Minnesota paid leave, you said you have 2 applying right now.
Yep.
Do we have a plan for, if they're out 2 months or whatever, to cover what they're doing?
Generally, we've been able to have the supervisors work with their teams and cover. That'll just be another thing that we have to see how it goes, since it's a brand new program.
I'm reading there's a lot out there taking it right now you think it'll still be here a year from now? Steve, you spent some time down there.
Well, we actually, that'll be in my, futures, the AMC futures last Friday morning, we had Deed come in and talk about it, and they've rejected, there's been plenty of applicants, they've approved 13,000, and they've rejected many.
They've approved 13,000?
They've approved 13,000. I believe, if I remember, if my numbers are recall right, they estimated that it would be 130,000 a year, and he said, but that 13,000 isn't necessarily. He said they could go back into 25. So he said that first month was a bigger number. So he said actually they're looking at, they probably are on target to that 130. He said we'll know as it goes, but they have rejected, there's people that apply that don't qualify, so.
So there's steps they need to go through depending on what the situation is.
Correct.
So they have proof, you have proof that what they're telling you is.
Yes, the doctor has to fill out a certification.
And the other question you mentioned, some of our numbers will change a little bit based on people who utilize this program and don't take other things. Is there a way, we know what paid family medical costs us in the budget right now. I mean, we have that number. But will we be able to see if there's an offset through some of them other programs, if that, you know what I mean, it's not just a gross, are we gonna have gross costs and a net cost? Or do we see any offset at all?
Well,
I was just trying to,
sorry, yep.
yeah, pick out what some of your information there.
So the short term is the one I foresee a drop in the most, and that one is 100% paid for by employees, so I don't think that one would
Okay.
have an impact for the county itself, yeah.
Okay, that was my question.
But when a person is out on leave, a portion of their salary is covered by the program. And so we will see some savings there unless we have to pick up costs elsewhere, right? So for the example of a deputy sheriff or a corrections officer, where if we are staffed at such a level that every time someone takes a day off, we have to bring someone in on overtime, then there isn't that direct savings. But in a situation where you have a person who say a social worker, where the rest of the team is kind of picking up their caseload, we may see some savings in that area. So we can take a look over the course of the year and see if there's a way that we can calculate that. I can't guarantee you we're gonna give you a great number, but we can certainly take a look at that.
I actually wasn't looking for savings, so if we find one,
You'll be,
yeah.
Well, and I don't know.
I mean,
we're never looking for savings.
when I heard that, I was like,
Yeah.
Actually, we are.
do we have a
Well,
opportunity?
and we don't know, and it's gonna change year to year, but we may find through the course of this year that we might be able to come up with a net number. We'll see.
Appreciate it.
I worry about the strain on the rest of our staff if this starts what is gonna happen? How much can you put on the rest, depending on how many people?
There's quite a bit of uncertainty.
And that's why I think that the chart that Mikkel showed just a little while ago, I'm trying to bring it back up here, that shows the number of folks who have been out on extended leave, one way or another, whether that's for 2 weeks or whether it's for the
Right.
full 12 weeks, I think is fairly illustrative of what we should maybe expect to see under the paid family leave program going forward. And yeah, some of them are really challenging, absolutely, when that person is out, and some of them are less challenging because the team's able to pick it up. And
And how
so-
much notice do they have to give you?
30 days is in the policy. I think they can apply up to 60 days in advance in MetLife.
Anything else for questions?
Do we still have someone using the Para-Pro from retirement, or is that one
No.
done?
They are done.
I was kind of hoping that one might catch a little more than,
I think we had 2 individuals who were participating, or one of them may not have actually started, but was considering it. It depends on the situation. The one that we had in our eligibility team was a great fit for that program because it gave the new people an opportunity to get trained up while not having to take on a full caseload, and that person's there to answer questions. It's not a perfect fit everywhere.
so let me ask this question. If someone fully retires, does not choose Para-Pro at time of retirement, 3 months down the road says, gee, I wish I would have, can they
I don't believe so. I believe it has to be done before retirement.
retire to retirement? Okay.
I'm not super versed in that just because we haven't had a lot of it, but I believe that it has to be before.
Anything else? Anyone? Well, thank you, Mikkel. I know you've had some challenges recently, and you do a great job, and appreciate all your work here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you.
I always am. It's not done yet. Paul goes to a lot of meetings, so. Administrators report.
Just a couple of brief things for you today. First off, as is noted on our agenda for today, we have a resets that's coming up, and then we'll be returning at 6 p.m. today to discuss to do a public hearing on the proposed hunting ordinance. I've received a handful of additional comments since we sent out the packet. I'm gonna email those to you today, and then we will attach them to the packet that's online as well as anything else that comes in before 4:30. So you should expect to get at least one email from me today with some additional comments from the public, which you may have also received separately from those individuals, but want to make sure you have them. Anybody who cannot attend the meeting and would like to have their comments included in tonight's hearing should email me by 4:30, and we can make sure those are included with the record. Other than that, we have no work session scheduled for next week because Steve is out of town. No, because we have no topics for that specific meeting. So that concludes my report.
No work session?
Well, we got tonight.
We have no,
Appreciate your long day today and your long day 2 weeks ago, so we'll give you
There you go. Appreciate that.
we have no real idea of how many folks may or may not be.
I think there's gonna be quite a few.
Are you still planning on having a sign-in if they get to speak?
Yeah, so what we're gonna do is, we're gonna have the room next door set up as an overflow room with a broadcast of the meeting into there. Additionally, we're gonna ask people to sign, to fill out a speaker slip, indicating their name, so that then we can call them up when when it's their turn to speak. Therefore, folks who are in the room next door shouldn't feel like they are being forgotten, and they don't feel like they need to line up to speak.
Well, I don't know if you saw the Wilmer paper on Saturday had got an article, it was on their front page about the firearm. Cited several counties and, I believe, the chair in Renville County, Snow, said, we're waiting to kind of get an eyeball on what other counties do.
My, oh my.
To their decision. So I think
Somebody has to lead.
You'll,
Somebody has to lead, is
You'll,
right.
you'll see the information tonight. I have heard from a number of counties, within there's 50, I think 58 counties in the shotgun zone. I have information from 21 of them, of what they're going to do. Of that, about half have, or a little more than half have not decided what they're gonna do, or their public hearings are coming up, including all of our neighbors. So we don't have a final decision from any of them yet at this point. But there are a number who have decided to allow rifles and a couple who have adopted ordinances or will be adopting ordinances.
All right, committee reports, who would like to start? Not, you didn't have any more, did you, Andrew?
No, that concludes my report.
I can start because I don't really have anything.
Well, Darren, go ahead then.
Yeah, I mean, really, if nothing, I just had one meeting with a individual and, had one meeting I thought was gonna have, but didn't. And, yeah, that's all. I don't really have anything
Okay,
from the last meeting.
nothing you want to tell us about?
No, not really. Other than, just again, anytime I'm out at the restaurant or whatever, I'm asking people, about both shotgun and, the sales tax. And you hear of, the shotgun stuff is a variety. Sales tax, after you explain it, people are fine with it.
What restaurant do you go to? Because I don't have that kind of.
I just was at
Just
Vinnie's
kidding.
the other night.
Vinnie's, I'll have to try Vinnie's. Commissioner Schmidt?
Yeah, I had AMC Futures last Thursday and Friday. Two things, and one was the discussion from Deed that we talked about already. The other one that we brought in, we had DOC come in and had them present on corrections, and then we had a little break, and then we brought in the MSA, Minnesota Sheriff's Association, and had them talk. And it was designed that way, Ryan Erdman designed it that way, and it was with good reason, because we're all aware that the Sheriff's Association has given a vote of no confidence to Commissioner Paul Schnell of DOC, and there was stark differences in the presentations, and you could definitely see why there is a complete change of our disagreement as far as the way services are delivered, and conversations. DOC, the way the trouble the Sheriff's Association has is the way inspections are done and things that are carried out, versus, now you get a new inspector 2 years from now, and what passed 2 years ago and is perfectly fine, now is interpreted a different way. So they're having a very hard time getting consensus over, back to the shalls and mays, and who interprets that, and who enforces that, and then what you spend to correct something that wasn't broke a year before or 2 years before. So a lot of disagreement there in the room, in the two presentations, and that was the reason I brought them in separately, so they could really air things out on the table. So that's something that, one of the gentlemen in the back of the room, and I don't remember what county he's from, he's not a commissioner, but he's worked in corrections across the nation. And he kind of put the final synopsis on it, Phil. He said he sat and wrote down words that DOC used, and then words that the Sheriff's Association used, and he said nowhere in the language that DOC is using does that match anywhere else in the United States that he's inspected. He said that it's very gray area, they're not being concise on what they want, and that validates the Sheriff's Association argument. So it was a really, really good discussion on that point, and then we had the Deed come in and talk about paid family medical with some of them initial numbers and stuff. And Deed will be at the legislature, which opens up today at the state, talking more there as well this week. with that, state legislature opens up today at noon, I believe. And I know I was on the phone with Don Gilman last week. HHS is still, that's a major part of the state budget, so it's a major part of our budget. That's where all any changes we can make. And we feel like there are some, both AMC and the legislature, there's some bipartisan support to make some adjustments to some of the legislation that's proposed, and a lot of that, if we can get some changes there, would be have direct financial impact on the plus side to counties, so, meaning that we would spend less on a county budget, so anything we can get there on later this week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'll be in DC at the NACO conference, and then Monday and Tuesday, we meet with legislators. Barb Weckman-Brecky from Scott County has a resolution forward again to change the annual assessments. So if your child has Down syndrome, they need to assess that child every year. And that's something that we have to do here, that Tina and her staff has to do. We're trying to get that to once every 3 years, and that would just save a tremendous amount of work. And at any time in that process, a social worker or a family member or the person themselves, the client themselves, can request an evaluation. So it's not like you're eliminated off the system for 2 years, you're still at play. So we're trying to get that changed federally so we can then put pressure on the state to adjust that. And I talked to Michelle Fishbach's office yesterday later in the afternoon, and they said now is the time to bring that up again. We brought it in last year, but at the time we were in there, they had the big beautiful bill that they were working on. And the language in this resolution was too close to other language and going opposite ways, so they weren't gonna touch this one. So we're hoping to work that through again this year. So that's what I've got going on for the next week or so.
Thank you. Carol, do you want to go next?
Sure. So I am an alternate, I believe, I'm gonna say what it is here rather than just the acronym. I believe it's Meeker, McLeod, Sibley County Health Board. Okay. So I met with Andrew and Tina and Kay so that they could get me up to speed on what MMS CHS does. And our part in that. And then I also met with Kaisa Olson, and she kind of walked me through this. Again, they do a lot, it's complicated. And so I feel a little more prepared. Paul was able to attend the meeting, and so that, I got to step away from that. But I do feel a little more prepared if one of you should not be able to attend the meeting. So that's how I spent my week. So, all right, and I think that's about it. So, yep.
Thank you. Oh,
Well, we had a Prime West meeting, and once again, when you look at the numbers, we were up 46.9 million from year-end 2024. We saw the presentation by Jim Prisbilla. Our current enrollment is 75,513. Now, 1 year ago, we were 50,357. Prime West did a great job of getting ready. They had their hiring in place and everything. So on January 1st, when these new 25,000 people came on, we were prepared for them. So they had a very good one. Meeker County's enrollment is 3,798. Prior to this year, it had been 3,336. So we did go up about 400 roughly people, or enrollees, I should say. Still have risk-based capital on hand for at a rate of about 645%. So we're in excellent shape there. So I think this is gonna be a little bit better year than what happened last year. We've had changes already. Just the enrollment of 25,000 more enrollees is gonna have a very positive impact by the year's end. CHB, and yes, Cheryl, thank you very much for being ready in case I was not able to get there. The first portion of that meeting was the business session for the year. We passed the normal resolutions, the delegations, election of officers, all of the normal stuff that you do in the first part of the year. Then we got to the review and findings from HMA, which made some, I thought, very good recommendations as how the CHB should move forward. There was a couple of folks there that were not satisfied with what was done and had different expectations of what they were going to do. But I personally, and Beth, you can answer this, I thought they did what we expected they were going to do. Now, the real question is, how are we gonna move forward? And do we have a private company to continue this move forward? Do we have enough money left of that grant to move forward? So those are some questions, and I think you called for a meeting in about a month, which we're gonna sit down and plan the process forward with Meeker, or with McLeod and Sibley. So, Southwest 18 in Marshall. Oh, one last thing on CHB. Later on that afternoon, we were notified of a $107,000 cut. So, they were appealing that cut, I believe, through a lawsuit, but we'll see what happens.
We get those, we'll get an email on Thursday, and then by Tuesday, somebody's appealed it out in New York, and it's all back, so I don't get too excited about it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna get excited about it, no. So down in Southwest 18, we went through our fiscal report, which shows that we have 5 months of cash on hand. We discussed the next grant. This past grant was for 2 years, we got $9 million. What is the future gonna bring? Which we don't know. Will it be the same? Will it be a little more? Will it be less? So, and we're not gonna know that probably until mid-year, maybe as late as September. So we're just kind of in a wait and see on the next 2 years' grant. Then last night, we had the hospital board meeting. Once again, we had a number of things we do at the first board meeting of the year. We did talk about a trip that I was fortunate enough to be on. The hospital board members went to the Rural Hospital Association conference. One of the best conferences I've ever been at. They had several different tracks that you could take. Mary Ellen and I kind of took the same track going through, so that we were hearing the same information. Yet you can hear the same information and have a different interpretation of what it was than the person sitting right next to you. But we had a chance to speak with Douglas County, Wadena, who just built a new hospital there. A chance to hear about what they did right, what they did wrong, and what they wish they would have done. We also had a long discussion with Northfield and Duluth. Although they're all different sized hospitals, you know, a lot of the problems are the same for each and every one of us. We're very fortunate to be a critical access. It has allowed us to get a higher reimbursement on a lot of things and has kept us in very good financial shape. So I'm gonna let Beth fill in the rest of the hospital board meeting. It was, like I said, it was mostly kind of that beginning of the new year and all of the routine stuff that does, conflict of interest and different things like that, so. And do we have MAP today? Okay, I won't be at that. I'm giving blood. So, that's it.
Paul, go ahead, Steve.
Just on the hospital there, that's one thing we talked about in futures too. Hennepin County was in the room and HCMC is in it.
They're struggling, yeah.
They need $350 million by the end of session, to stay afloat. And the conversation was about, they are a hospital that we need very badly, cause that's your burn unit. That's, I mean, there's things they do at HCMC we can't do anywhere else. So the vitality of hospitals across the state,
Was there discussion about how they got there? Because to say we need them is one thing, but to try
I
to figure out how they
understand.
lost all that money is entirely, I have my own ideas. I've been,
but only 7 county-owned hospitals in the state
Yep.
left.
Yep.
and We're one of them.
we're one of the
But,
fortunate ones.
I just wanted to bring that up, that HEMC is
Struggling.
in
Are
a
they
tough
gonna,
situation.
they were talking about not staying open much
And
longer.
I had it written down here somewhere about the percentage of 40, those should be percentages, 40% Medicaid, 30% Medicare, 20% insurance, and 10% cash.
That's
This is kind of the standard.
part of the issue
That's
right
their
there.
makeup.
It's a huge issue. Yeah. Obviously, so. All right, so, is that it, Steve?
Yeah, I just,
Yeah, so Paul and I have a lot of the same meetings, so obviously I was at Prime West, I don't have anything to add to that. We're in the middle of discussion with, Center Care about our PSA and management agreement. John Sprider and I are doing that. We've had about 3 meetings, I think, things are going well, it's very congenial. We're trying to get the PSA wrapped up as soon as we can, because we get financing for the hospital clinic for the add-on. We're gonna need to have the doctors in place, so.
PSA is,
Professional
It's a
services.
Professional service agreement for the doctor.
okay.
Thank you.
So we had that, and we haven't started on the management yet. They kind of follow closely, so those have been going fine. We, like Paul said, we had the McLeod, Meeker Sibley Community Health Board meeting. I also thought that the report by the consultants went well. You were there, Andrew. I was happy with the result. I think there was some preconceived notions by some that board members that they would have liked to seen, and we did not see that, and I was grateful for that, because we're not ready for that. We have to see where we're going from here, so. We're gonna start meeting more often and probably have some committees, set up, and I think things are gonna get better there. We, let's see, what else did I have? I think that's it, except for the hospital board, and we elected a new, chair last night. Mr. Paul Johnson is our new chair on the Meeker County Hospital Board. Al Leisman has been on our board for several years. His term was up, and he's decided, to not reterm, so I wanna thank him. He's been a very good board member. We appreciate everything that he's done on the board, so we will have a spot open that we will have to fill in the future here. And then, like Paul said, the rest of it was just things we do at the end of the year, you know, or beginning of the year that we have to go through, so. I think that's about all I had. Any questions?
Thank you for your service
Yeah.
as chair of that
Yeah.
hospital board.
I figured if I backed off for a year, somebody would have an eye on him for a year. Kidding, kind of.
2 eyes.
Will Dolan took Al Leisman's spot as secretary, so, as well, so.
And Beth and I did have that discussion, and I said, you're not gonna just step back and away. You've had, the hospital's been a passion of hers for a long time.
Yeah.
How many years were you chair?
I don't know, I know I've only been chair once though, but it's been for a long. You're not gonna stump me on that question again. So, it's been enjoyable, and everybody knows I love it, so, I love the direction we're going. So, Mary Ellen's done a great job, and I see great things for her future, so. With that, if there's not, is there anything else?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to recess county board until 6 PM tonight for the public hearing.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do I have to do that, Paul? No, we're recessed till 6 o'clock tonight in this room. Thank you, everyone. I never know.
See
if
you
I-
all in 8 hours.
Yeah, see you all in 8 hours. I never know if I need a motion for all those things.
You don't need one.